The Talking Cheeseheads on cheeseheadtalk.com.
So the Brewers got me a little bit excited yesterday with some moves they made. They made a flurry. Really, you could call it a flurry. I think it meets the definition. A flurry of moves that the Brewers made yesterday. They call up Scooter Gennett, who we've been talking about since late April because he's been knocking the crap out of the ball, at least knocking the base hits out of the ball as much as he does, and hitting on a tear down at AAA. And he's been hitting every level of minor league baseball, and Ricky Weeks clearly is not hitting so far this year. So they call him up. They get rid of Alex Gonzalez, who, certainly unfortunately would have been interesting to see how things would have been different for him had he not ripped up his ACL last year, because he was off to a pretty good start, but he hasn't been the same since. So the Brewers get rid of him, not unexpected at all. They send Mike Fiers down to Nashville, again, not expected. He was admittedly embarrassed by his last outing in Philly on Sunday. And they trade for Juan Francisco, who can back up Aramis Ramirez at third and also play first base. Young guy, hasn't found his stroke yet. Good friends with Gogo Gonzalez, the Brewers center fielder, which is interesting. Or Gomez. Why did I say Gonzalez? Gomez. Carlos Gomez. I keep doing that. Carlos Gomez, the Brewers center fielder. They're good friends, and it maybe a lot of the same things. Doug Melvin was talking about it yesterday a little bit. Maybe a lot of the same issues there where he's got a lot of tools but hasn't put it all together. Well, we're seeing Gomez having put them together this year so far, which is good, and maybe that can be something that becomes a good move for the Brewers. They gave up a minor leaguer, and they get Juan Francisco. So those are the moves. And the club also signaling here the key move to this is that they're signaling that it's time to push Ricky Weeks. They're essentially going to give Scooter Gennett a platoon with Weeks at second base, a left-handed bat. By the way, Francisco also a left-handed bat, so they help potentially that problem too, where they're just throwing a bunch of righties up there and make their lineup a little bit more deep and thick that way. It was time. I don't think the club wanted to do this. I don't think the Brewers were thinking, yeah, we've got Ricky Weeks for $10 million this year, $11 million next year. Let's see if we can bring up Gennett and push him because he's not producing. But their hands forced here. I mean, he's really been struggling. Now, if last night is any indication, it was a great move because Ricky Weeks hits a home run and a triple, which is really a home run, but replay, what is going on with that? We have to decide how to run that system because I don't think it's very efficient or accurate these days. The Brewers have had a couple of home runs that are questionably overturned here on the last couple of nights. If they were a better team, it might be very upsetting. But we'll see how that plays out through Major League Baseball. But anyway, Weeks hits a homer and a triple and tears the cover off the ball last night. Scooter Gennett's going to start tonight and get his first ever big league start. He did get a at-bat, which you got to love the Miller Park faithful. Because, there were about 100 people left in the stands by the time the ninth rolled around last night, and the Brewers were down 10-2. Just constantly down 6-0 is the story of the season for the Brewers, and then it gets worse from there. So they're down 10-2, and Scooter Gennett comes up, and everybody starts clapping, getting excited. Brewer fans certainly aware of the situation and aware of what they need to be looking for. He grounds out softly to the pitcher. He'll get the start tonight, probably another applause, and then we'll see what happens from there. But, he's being pushed, and if this works for a while, great. And it is something, that you could probably see for the time being, and maybe for the next couple of years. Because Ricky Weeks makes too much money to trade, and he makes too much money to sit. So where does that leave the Brewers? Well, it leaves them probably in this exact situation, trying to spark him. If they can do that, for the rest of this year, Gennett will probably play down at AAA if Ricky Weeks starts to hit. He'll go back to just playing every day at AAA. And if he doesn't hit, again, it'll be a platoon, and then we'll see about next year. Because if Gennett performs well this year at the big league level for his stint up in Milwaukee, well, you can't really keep him down AAA too long, right? So we'll have to see how it plays out. But exciting to see him up here. You've heard a lot about him. I guess he's like Jim Gantner, which is great. Not a lot of power, but a spray hitter and can hit for average, and he's done it at every level so far in the minor leagues. He's ranked, by the way, the 6th best prospect in the Brewers system. So take that for what it's worth. Again, if it pushes Ricky to start hitting the ball with some pop and being a better player, then, hey, great move, Milwaukee. That's the deal. So you got some left-handers in the lineup, and really at this point, again, the big thing is you need to fill out the lineup a little bit but you've got some good pieces there. And we come back to the pitching because they certainly didn't make any moves there except sending Fires down, which means Figueroa gets a start, and when Narvison's ready, he'll probably slide into that spot in the rotation. But did you see Marco Estrada last night? Anybody paying attention to that? I'm sure you were. Again, right away, hopelessness for the Brewers. How sick of this are you? I mean, down 6-8-0 right away. Boom. 4 innings in the books, done. And then he's hurt. He's hurt. I hate to be cynical. No, I don't. And Estrada's out of the lineup. And he stunk anyway last night. You know, these guys can turn in gems and then just turn around and take your team right out of the game. I mean, this is so demoralizing. Demoralizing is the best word for it. And so what do you do if you're the Brewers the rest of the season? You have to move into the essentially the rebuilding and tooling for the future mode, right? So, you know, you take a look, and we'll talk with Justin Hull about this on the podcast coming up in a little bit, but who do you keep and who's not a keeper for the future? Well, offensively, you know, Braun, I suppose you keep him. You know, Gomez, Segura, Aoki, Jonathan Lucroy. You know, those guys are all keepers. I'd say building blocks for the future, right? All pretty much young, all under contract, except for Segura, but he's in his, you know, second year of service, I guess. So then Weeks, Ramirez, Corey Hart, questionable, right? We can all agree on that. You don't know, Corey Hart might not get back from his injury till after the All-Star break now. He's just progressing really slowly. And you see the future, he's a free agent after the year. Don't know. Pitching, Yovani Gallardo's under contract, so I guess he's a keeper. not this year, but Kyle Loesch under contract for the next couple of years after this. So he's a keeper. And then the rest of your rotation, Willie Peralta. I mean, this year is going to make or break him the rest of this year as far as the future with the Brewers. Marco Estrada. Keep the ball down, Marco. Don't hurt your hamstring. Narvison has been solid, but certainly hurt this year. So you don't know about those guys. Question marks, you know. In the bullpen, you know, Henderson, I guess, keeper so far. I mean, what's the shelf life of a closer, apparently, before he has an implosion? Another half year? Figueroa is, I'd like to see that guy and see what he can do. You know, Gonzalez, Gorzolani. And bullpen pieces are hard because they're just, you know, either somebody you've developed, but more often than not, it's somebody you're bringing in. Doug Melvin likes to bring in other guys as pieces. And then John Axford is the question mark. You know, he's pitching better now, a lot better now. But what's his future? Well, he's under contract, so I guess that should tell you a lot right there. So, you know, that's something we can kind of keep track of. We've got a long time to keep track of that for the Brewers, how the rest of the season develops, because there's not much hope here that they can mount any kind of a run, get in any kind of playoff contention. It's just not there, not with the teams ahead of them. So that's the deal. You get me excited a little bit with your roster moves, a little hope. Not excited, curious. Curious was more the move. And then I tune in last night, and you're down 8-0. Oh, right. This is who we're dealing with. That's your 2013 Milwaukee Brewers. We'll talk more about that coming up. Also, you can check us out on YouTube, Cheesehead Talk, or Talking Cheesehead's channel at YouTube, and we're on Twitter at Cheesehead Talks. And Justin Hull will join us in a little bit to talk more about the Brewers as well here on the Talking Cheeseheads. CheeseheadTalk.com.
The Talking Cheeseheads on CheeseheadTalk.com.